it's important that I kind of tell you my own rags to riches story. I grew up in Los Angeles, California. How many people are from LA? A lot of people, yeah. LA people? You like traffic? Great, huh? Yeah. I grew up in LA. I lived in Orange County as an adult. I moved to Phoenix in 2011, and then very oddly, yeah, I really like Phoenix, by the way. That was a very, Phoenix and Scottsdale, Arizona, very easy place to live, not a traffic problem. It's very convenient. But oddly, I might hold a Guinness World Record for this one. I had to move back to California for a tax break. I don't know that anybody's ever done that, ever. So call the Guinness World Record book. And I got to live in California for 6 months and a day to get my tax break. So I moved just in June to La Jolla, California, in San Diego. Any San Diegans here? We had Sean on stage. He's from San Diego. Yeah, San Diego's a great town. I really like it, but a lot of traffic in San Diego, too. So anyway, back to Los Angeles and the rags to riches thing. So I grew up, on the poor side, and didn't have access to a lot of things. And I always I went to an integrated school, an integrated public school, and if you don't know what integration is, that means where they bus everybody in and mix everybody up, And I saw some very wealthy kids at my school that lived in an area called Cheviot Hills, and some of them actually lived in Beverly Hills, 90210. And then some lived in very poor areas, and I was kind of on the lower side of that spectrum where I lived. And I always thought, it seems like all the kids with money just have a little bit better life. They have a little more freedom. They get to do fun things. They were always going to Mammoth and going skiing for the weekend and, had cool stuff. When it came time to drive, they had really cool cars. My first car cost $700. I bought it used, of course. And so I got interested in this concept of money at a very young age. And I had a Vans shoebox. I spent a lot of my childhood skateboarding, and this Vans shoebox, Vans shoes, these shoes, right? Okay, they still have Vans shoes. Okay, yeah, they do. So I had this Vans shoebox, and I started sending away in magazines. I would see ads. One of my favorite magazines was Popular Science, and another one was Success Magazine, but I don't think that's the same as the Success Magazine today. It may or may not be, I'm not sure. And I would see all of these ads and, classified ads and display ads in these magazines. And this was before Al Gore invented the internet. That's a joke, by the way. Al Gore's a joke. But okay, don't get mad at me. Yes. Anyway, so I would send away, and I kept a roll of stamps in my Vans shoebox, and a big stack of envelopes, and one of those, what do they call them, like a licky thing, where you fill it with water and you lick the envelope, so you didn't have to do it with your tongue. And so I would go to Winchell's Donuts, at night before my mom got home, because she would work 2 jobs and got home late. And this is actually the same Winchell's. It's still there. I found it on Google Maps literally yesterday, or on Google Street View. And I would go to this Winchell's on the corner of Westwood Boulevard and National Boulevard in LA. And I would sit there and I would do all my mailings. And I would inquire about all of these offers. And, I remember there was this one company called Rare Earth Real Estate that sold islands. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to own an island? That would be really swank, right? And so I remember this one thing I really agonized over. It was called the Wealth Kit. And, this is like the early days of direct response marketing, right? And so the Wealth Kit was $19.95. And I literally kind of agonized over, saving up for this. I started working when I was 14 years old. And I finally decided I'd send away for the Wealth Kit. The ad was so compelling. It said, it's $19.95, but unless you make at least $5,000 from the Wealth Kit, you don't have to pay me $39.95. How's that sound for an internet marketer's offer, right? It's just like not much has changed with human nature, has it? And so I sent away for the wealth kit, and I remember I would go to Winchell's, and I would read that thing at night, and, all of these ideas in there, from subdividing land to, opening businesses to just everything you could think of. It really opened my eyes about a lot of stuff. And so that's what I would do when I wasn't out skateboarding and hanging out with friends. And it really inspired me. Now, years later, I saw an infomercial for a real estate guru. I was 16 years old at this point, and I saw this infomercial, and the guru was talking about how he bought all these houses with no money down. You've heard of this concept, I'm sure. Whenever you can't sleep, you have insomnia, you're up late watching these things. And so I got his book, and I read 3 chapters of the book, put it down, and my mom picked it up and read the rest. I was only 16, I didn't finish much at that age. And so I put the book down, Mom read the rest. 2 years later, I'm 18 years old, I'm about to graduate from high school, and my mom goes, Jason, you got me interested in this real estate stuff. There's a big seminar in Anaheim by Disneyland this weekend. Why don't you go? And I thought, okay, so at that age, I couldn't do anything by myself. So I rounded up 9 of my buddies from high school, and I got them all to go. And Friday night, the first speaker is up there, and he's talking about points. And I'm like, what are points? He's talking about loan points, when you finance a real estate deal. I didn't know what points were. And fortunately, about a year earlier, I had the very good fortune to be walking through Walden Books in Cerritos Mall, and I picked up an audio cassette tape for $9.95 by Zig Ziglar, and it was called See You at the Top. And the subtitle was, A Checkup from the Neck Up to Eliminate Stinkin' Thinkin' and Avoid Hardening of the Attitudes. You like Zig Ziglar? Any Zig Ziglar fans in here? Yeah, he's great. The late Zig Ziglar, he's awesome. And I remember next to it, in the little tiny audiobook section, there was a cassette tape. Remember those? Okay. A cassette tape called The Psychology of Winning by Dennis Waitley, 10 Qualities of a Total Winner. And I remember just totally agonizing, gosh, do I spend another $9.95 and get both of them? Well, fortunately, I got both of them. And The Psychology of Winning had this giant influence on my life. I listened to that cassette literally 180-ish times in the next 30 days because I would drive a lot. In the time I lived in LA, and I would drive to Long Beach, and I was listening to this cassette constantly to program my mind. And then I discovered Jim Rohn and Earl Nightingale, and later, of course, Tony Robbins. You know who Tony Robbins is, right? You've heard of him? Okay. Live with passion. All right, and that just totally changed my life. So I got my real estate license my first year of college, and I was 19 years old. It was a couple weeks before my 20th birthday. And I started selling real estate to investors for Century 21, just so I could learn the business. Because I remember Earl Nightingale saying to me, if you want to get rich in real estate, learn the business first. Just be humble and learn the basics. And so I did that. And then one of my clients was a guy named Jim Wool, that was his name. And he had purchased a few properties from me as I drove him and other clients around in my little Volkswagen Jetta. And he came to me about 6 months after I was in the business, and he said, one of these properties I bought from you, it was a little one-bedroom condo in Huntington Beach, California on Coventry Lane. He said, I don't really like this property. It's just not one of the better ones. Why don't you take the listing and sell it for me, and then I'll buy another property from you. And I said, you know what, Jim? I don't want to sell it for you. I want to buy it from you. And at 20 years old, that was my first rental property. I still lived at home, okay, but I bought my first rental property. And oddly, I had kind of a bad experience, to tell you the truth. I had to evict my tenants. They were problematic and so forth. But I ended up selling the property and made some money on it. And then I bought a whole bunch more properties. And now I've purchased a lot of single-family homes over the years, a few apartment complexes. I just bought my first mobile home park with a partner client of mine, about 200 units, and I am officially a slumlord. okay? Yes, just kidding. Mobile home parks have awesome cash flow. But so my real estate career developed. I bought a real estate company that was failing. It was in Irvine, California, as Matt said. And then I sold it to Coldwell Banker, and that was a pretty tough deal to turn that company around. But I did it, I sold it, had a good exit. And then I got into the investment business because I thought, why is it that income property is the most historically proven asset class in the world? It's the best investment vehicle, but it has frankly, a kind of a lousy sales force. It's just not a very good way that it's sold. It's sold all by local people who only sell in one market. And I thought, why isn't there a Merrill Lynch of real estate investing? So I tried to invest my money from the sale of the company nationwide so I could be diversified, and I couldn't find any way to do this, anyone to help me with this, so I created this company that did it. And about a year into that, I heard Leo Laporte on KFI radio on a Saturday afternoon as I was driving on Jamboree Road in Newport Beach. Anybody ever listen to Leo Laporte, the tech guy? Yeah, he's great, all right? Anyway, so this guy calls in about podcasting. And I thought, that's really interesting, podcasting. And I was looking for ways to gain leverage. Remember, we're talking about leverage. How do you do more with less? Right? Podcasting, I thought that's really good. I had a little radio show on KRLA at the time. It was okay. My company was spending about $250,000 a year on radio advertising. That was, so-so. And I thought, I really need to be able to explain things to people deeply. So I started this podcast 9 years ago. And I've been fortunate to interview all kinds of very famous guests on my show over the years. And that's just been a great thing for business. I've had Ben Carson, presidential candidate. Steve Forbes has been on the show. So I've had 3 presidential candidates, a bunch of just huge name guests. And it's been great to learn from these people and ask them the questions. And now, I've got this whole podcast network with a bunch of different shows.